Here's my review of Dr. Stone, Chapter 134, Commander Face-Off. And right off the bat, I just absolutely love the scene between Mose and Hyoga. They both accepted their death, not just being petrified, but realizing that no matter who wins, they are both viewed as essentially too dangerous to ever wake back up again. And so now they've lost. There's nothing they can do. They don't try to flee. They just kind of sit there and accept it. And Mose right here, if we ever do break free, all those centuries of polishing that you mentioned, I'd like to take a crack at that pipe spear stuff. And then Hyoga, to his enemy, to the man that's been trying to kill him, as you please, as long as you seek to do it well, the gates of the Wari Kan Ryu style will always be open to you. I mean, that was just so utterly perfect. These two men respecting each other's strengths, respecting how strong and how powerful they've become through their own means, want to essentially learn from each other, want to grow stronger together. And I just really hope they both end up waking up down the road. You know, Senku revives them and says, all right, you two, play nice and try not to kill anyone. Or, you know, just find some way to keep them from murdering each other. Anyway, yeah, the petrification beam hits, and oh god, we see poor little Suka lost her helmet and fallen to the ground. That's depressing. I mean, seriously, this size of this thing is freaking ridiculous. It can almost be seen from space. Actually, they take the time out to tell you it can be seen from space. So maybe Ray from the reboot's gonna show up at some point. Just saying, possibilities. And you gotta love, well, a whole lot here. I mean, just the way it looks absolutely freaking amazing. But just Ibara's confidence here, because I mean, he's like 3 feet away from the petrification beam hitting him. And he's got a lot of confidence, you know, it won't. I mean, seriously, if he just parked the boat a little bit closer, he would have gotten hit. And that would have been really hilarious, honestly. I mean, he told Amaroshi to run to the center of the island, but it's not like, you know, that's a marked point that he can measure out from. And even then, you know, Taiju and the rest of them tackled on the ground before he got there, so he could have been hit there, and that would have been a very interesting way for him to meet his end. Anyway, then he goes back to shore, and just a total ass for stepping on this crab on the back of his own one of his own people right there. I mean, that's just heartless. And laughing maniacally all the way. I mean, seriously though, you're alone at this point. I mean, he's all like, oh, well, I can always get the rival fluid out of the rest of them. How? I mean, he literally says, if there isn't enough, I can torture them into making more. What if they didn't have any more on them, genius? Then you'd literally be alone for the rest of your sad, miserable life. You'd have to, you know, make your own food and clean your own clothes and not have a harem to service you anymore. This was not a well thought out plan. And then we see the science team, and oh my god, I love this. I'm not gonna lie, this took me a while to figure out exactly why they were posed like this, what it is they were trying to do, and I didn't realize it after I read the chapter. I thought about it for a while, went to bed. 3 a.m. I stared at the ceiling like, I'm like, oh, that's it! The reason they struck this pose was for Senku, so he can know the exact moment to pour their vital fluid on himself. They all had their arm out, so that they could start being petrified. And then, once it reached a certain point, they lifted their other arm in the air to say, okay, Senku, at this point, we stop being able to control ourselves. We stop being able to move. So you should know that when your petrification for you reaches that point, that's when you gotta pour the vital fluid on yourself. They literally all sacrificed themselves, all turned to stone, so Senku could measure their reaction speed, measure the speed of the moving light to know exactly when to pour their vital fluid on himself. And that is so freaking awesome! Oh my god, that is awesome! Anyway, then Ibara recognizes young Soyuz from way back when. And I actually really like this little bit of information. To pass down the 100 Tales, generations of masters have taken wives with impressive memories. That's the reason Soyuz remembers things he saw as a child, because he was literally bred to have an impressive memory so he can remember the 100 Tales. Which also explains why people remember the 100 Tales. I mean, seriously, that's 100 stories, each of which several hours long, that have not changed for several thousand years. You're gonna need a dang good memory to remember that. I thought it was just training. Nope, it's the fact they were bred for it. Love it. I mean, that didn't actually seem to be an issue in Ishigami Village. They were more concerned about strong people than about having people with good memories, so curious about that. And you just gotta love Soya's mother here. I mean, even with all these soldiers attacking her, she guarded her child and, I mean, suffered serious injury that was almost certainly the death of her, and still managed to get away, still managed to guide her child to the place where his adopted parents were able to find him, raise him as their own. I mean, that's a dang good mother right there. Anyway, then he crushes open Hiroshi and gets the petrified device from inside his stomach, which, concerning. I'm sure they're gonna have a lot of fun putting those pieces back together. I mean, seriously, one wrong move and his, appendix and stomach switch places. That would not end well. And then Senku uses the telephone to shoot out the message, 5 meters, 1 second. And this nearly makes Hiroshi wet himself as he runs away from the petrified. He's trying to get away from it. And this is a brilliant move by Senku right there. And just props on Ukyo for, getting information to him. Like, hey, Senku, it works by giving meters and then a time. And based on the quote marks around it, I'm assuming the orders are spoken in English or Russian or some other language. I mean, it usually means it's a foreign language, not Japanese. Unfortunately, though, it did not work because I guess you have to be a little closer to the device for it to activate. And when Ibara used on Yo, he literally was within like 2 inches of it. And then the next time he used it, it was like in his mouth. Or, I don't know, maybe it actually requires like human breath to activate. So you actually need to like breathe on it or it needs to be able to read your bios when it works or something like that. Anyway, yeah. So Senku is alive and he's going to fight against Ibara. And you just got to love the look on Ibara's face and you realize that Senku is alive. He is freaked. Because it means that Senku's sorcery is so much greater than his that the petrification device won't even work on him. I mean, if this was Jen right here, he'd say, I'm completely immune to the device, so don't even bother trying to use it on me again. But this is Senku we're talking about, and you never lie about science, so I feel like he's going to straight up explain what happened. Oh yeah, I watched what happened with all my friends, so I knew exactly when I would lose control of my left arm, and was able to pour the fluid on me as I was being petrified. Which, again, absolutely freaking insane strategy to use. I mean, seriously. God, I love it. Anyway, so next week is Senku versus Ibara. The Commanders Facing Off, as the chapter was called, and oh, not next week, 2 weeks, sorry. They're all on break next week. And honestly, I'm just really excited to see all this because, I mean, Senku managed to get back to the van, managed to set things up, so I'm assuming he managed to, get supplies, whatever else he needed for the big battle against him. I mean, if Ibara thinks he can use the petrification device on Senku, it makes for a much harder battle. But if he doesn't, then we still have Ibara, who is a very strong man. I mean, seriously, don't forget, he literally impaled Jinro while he was falling down in a move that completely violated laws of physics. Plus, he's got those sharp animal nails on his fingers that are completely terrifying. Either way, this won't be an easy battle for Senku, but with his sorcery at hand, I feel like he can definitely beat Ibara, and I'm just really excited for this fight. I mean, really, when was the last time Senku had to fight someone by himself, which is the power of science on his hand? Has Senku ever fought someone by himself with the power of science in his hand? Actually hasn't. I mean, he's always had his friend or allies or, could wake up someone who was petrified to be his fighting ace, but now he realized to fight by himself. That's going to be a really cool moment. I'm also wondering if there's going to be any after effects using the petrification of beam like that. Because Kirasami actually said, Master told very specifically, never use it over a large area. So could this have broken it, like short-circuited it? I mean, could that be the reason it didn't work when Senku gave the order? Because it literally fried itself out trying to petrify that large of an area? I mean, I've definitely have my suspicions it's going to stop working after this, and they're just going to have to, track it down to its source, figure out where exactly it came from, and go there next, but we'll see about that. Anyway, let me think down below. Ibara versus Senku, who's going to win? How dirty is Senku going to fight? I'm hoping he fights dirty enough to make Jen proud. Anyway, be sure to like, subscribe to the next video, and until then,
peace.